Hello everyone, this is Riccardo Masini and this is Vlog, and in this vlog I will not be speaking about the game, but this time I will be speaking about a book on games, on war games, and especially a book I have written myself. Historical simulation and war games, the Hexagon and the Sword, published by CRC Taylor and Francis. Now, this is a very special episode that I wanted to record, also because I am restarting, of course, the new season of vlog after the summer break, and also because I have this great news to share with you. This is the first book on war games that I have written in English language. I have written several books on war games. My Italian book public knows them, but I've always written them in Italian language. There was Paper Wars 2.0, Ariadne's Game, etc. I have written, some of you may have read the articles, I've written material in English for websites, web magazines like Punched, and of course for paper magazines, and I'm really really proud of this, on C3I magazine, and always thanks to Roger McGowan, some articles on C3I magazine in English. But this is the first time that I've written a book directly into English language. No, it is not a translation, it is an original work that I have written in original in English language. So first of all, thanks to the great CLC and Taylor Francis staff for having supported me during the writing process. That has been quite difficult because I'm not an English language native speaker nor writer, so it has been quite engaging, yeah, and they've had a lot of patience with an Italian guy writing an academic essay for the first time directly into English, and I really thank them. It's been great to work with that publisher. Now, the book I have not physically in my hands. The book, you will not see it physically. Why? Because it has not yet been printed. It will be printed. It will be available all after September 18th, both in physical and electronic format. And you can pre-order that book. You can pre-order the book on the web link I will put into the description of this video on the Routledge website, and it will be sent to you after September 18th. Now, I am aware that the price is significant. This is not my decision, but I understand everything. However, I'm giving you, and I really want to thank the CLC and Taylor Francis staff for this opportunity, because I'm giving you a special discount code for all the people that will be watching this video, and this code I will put here and down in the text, but it is DYS20, DYS20. I will be putting it on the video. Don't worry. This will give you a special discount on the price of the essay of the book. However, why should you add your money and also your time into reading this work? Oh no, another book about war games. Well, first of all, I'm really happy that in the last years there has always been a writing movement, a lot of essays on wargaming, but in the last couple of years I've seen so many of them, and all of them are very great and very well written, and I'm thankful for this. My own essay, well, the idea of this book, I have to say that the original idea of this book is not entirely mine. And I want to thank you more, to thank Maurice Sackling for this foreword on the book. You will find his foreword on this book, but also for having given me the first push into writing this book. He said, okay, we have so many conversations and we help each other with our own research. Ricardo, why don't you write a book about all the things that you are saying to me during our discussions, during our chats and emails and so on. And also Maurice pointed me in the right direction, gave me the right impulse to propose this book. I'm really thankful to him. Without him, without Maurice, this book will simply not exist. So I'm really thankful to him. The main idea of this book is to, well, I think that there are three main concepts on these books, and all of them are intercorrelated. Okay. First of all, this is not my first book. This is my third major book. I made some contributions, but this is my third major book. The first one was Paper Wars 2.0. It was essentially an introduction to wargaming, and it was 2.0 because it was the second and large edition of the original Paper Wars, which was Le Guerre di Carta, which was written in 1979 by my father, and I've written the 2.0 edition with him as well. And in 1979, this was I think a seminal book for the wargaming movement in Italy, because everyone in Italy read that book, because it was the first book written in Italian about wargaming, about historical simulation, and especially aimed at designed for newcomers, for beginners, for people who did not know this wonderful hobby. And I made the second edition in 2018, I think, with my father. But this was a first level book. Now, later in 2020, okay, with the pandemic and all, Paper Wars 2.0 was published by Unicopli, and then Arches Games. You know Arches also for games like Lepanto, etc. He's also a wargame designer. Well, Arches asked me to write a second book. It was Ariadne's game about non-linear simulation. It was a second level, almost an advanced book about political, economic, and military as well simulation. All of them like the next revised form: card-driven games, coin games, asymmetrical games, etc., etc. And now this third book. And this third book is centered on three main concepts. First of all, since it is my first book in English, you don't need to have read, of course, the first two books in Italian. So I somewhat restarted again, and I examined three great aspects of historical simulation. First of all, the relationship between historical simulation and historiography. So this is the result also some of my work for the Italian Military History Society, and for some papers that I published with that academic society. And it is a relationship between game design, historical simulation game design, and the historiography, that is primary and secondary sources. And in general with history, the relationship with history, how the game relates things that have happened in history. And more precisely, how we know those events. So our image of those events. The second trend, the second aspect is our own relationship with history. This book deals with how people, even before becoming players in war games, deal with historical perception of the past. And this is another field of inquiry that I've followed in the last years, that is the collective imagination, the collective image that we have of the past. And the third aspect, of course, it is the final combination of the first two. How we deal with history in our relationship with history through war games, through historical simulation. And so how do we have this wonderful instrument of this historical simulation, and it is related to history in some ways, in some forms, with some dynamics. And then we have our own relationship with history, with the past events, also on deeply personal level. For example, think about family history, about World War II. Everybody has a family history about World War II. I remember to people, guys, my family comes from casino, so I have a very deep and strong relationship with the events of casino. This is my mother's family. My father's family was on the Gothic line in Emilia-Romagna, so I have also a relationship with that part of the Italian campaign. And this is true for every one of you. My grandfather fought in Africa. Maybe your grandfather, I don't know, maybe he fought here in Italy or in Normandy or in Korea or people in Vietnam. Everyone has his own, or in the American Civil War, or in Russia, or in France, etc. This is our deep, very close relationship with history that is always present. This is a very important point of this book. And after that, having the instrument and having the individual motivation to use that instrument to relate ourselves to history, the third aspect is, how do we use this instrument to get into a closer relationship with history, with our own personal relation through the lens of who? Of the designer, of the game designer. That is very, very similar to an academic historian writing a book, designing a war game and an historical simulation game, and in writing an historical essay, are not so different aspects. Yeah, this book will deal with the differences between these two approaches, but also the many, many similarities, both from the point of view of the author, but also from our own point of view as players, as readers, as people who want to get into relationship with history. So, what are the parts of the book? How do I put forward this work, this inquiry, this study, this exploration? Because the book, I like to write books as collective exploration. Especially when I'm writing a book, I'm also exploring with you the very same topic I'm writing about, because, of course, as always, while you're writing a book, you discover other things, and this is very true. And I read and reread, reinterpreted and rediscovered many sources about the past. There are many passages and quotations from Moves magazines and C3I and Strategy and Tactics and designer interviews. Of course, the great works by Perla, Danigan, Al-Nofi, Mark Herman, Volker Ranke, Brian Train, so many other, Cole Verle, Fred Serval, so many friends. Some of them are friends. I have the privilege of knowing them, as in some cases on being able to call them friends. Also, Arab Buchanan, so many people, Maurice Sacklings himself, so many people, all put together. How do I take forward with study? Well, chapter 1, let's see chapter after chapter after the forward by Maurice Sackling. Chapter 1 is, what is a simulation game? So a conceptual analysis of simulation game, of how simulation games model history from the ancient times, because they are not entirely modern. It is not all began with the Kriegspiel. We have also Aristoteles and medieval thinkers and Renaissance thinkers thinking about modeling history through games, through mathematical equations and operations and algorithms, and create models of games. And then the concept of games, of the different families of games, I use the term the three realms of simulation, and you will discover what these simulations are and how do they create the simulation flow, the psychological experience of simulation. Chapter 2 is how it is done, common simulation game mechanics, because an analysis, a study, a punctual, a very actual analysis of actual game design techniques, because they're very important, different techniques, and also different approaches. Also about, let's say, sensitive arguments, how to deal with sensitive topics on historical simulation games, and also hybrid simulation, so the latest trends, and how are they so closely related to traditional wargame design, because traditional wargame design has always been highly experimental. It's never stagnated. It was always dependent on experimenting, on innovation, on finding new ways to tell history, to recreate history, to put people back into history. Chapter 3 is in the field, historical dynamics through the gaming lens. So we inverse the perspective, and so there is an analysis between the relationship between mechanics and the interpretation of historical dynamics. This is where historiography comes into play. It's just abstract historical modeling or dry source analysis, source linkation. No. There is historiography. There are different perspectives, points of view. There are different choices by the authors. An author chooses to use a certain approach in a game because he or she wants to focus on a particular object, the narration of past events, exactly like an historian do. Because no historian will ever tell you the entire history or something. He or she will focus on a specific aspect of those events with a specific approach, with a specific point of view. Chapter 4 reverses the perspective once again, and it is us, the gamers, the players, the real engine. The game designer that gave the first spark that created all the machine, the wonderful paper time machine, as Danigan and my dear friend Maurice Sackling like to call those games. But also, why do game design take certain choices, as we've seen, but also has players, our own expectation, how they evolve year after year, and also how games tell us so much about the societies that in which those games are created. I make the example of games about the Vietnam War. If you get back to Vietnam War by Victory Games, now republished by GMT, and then you get to, I don't know, Hearts and Minds or Fire in the Lake, they're totally different, or Saigon 75, they're totally different beasts. Of course, about the Vietnam War, but this can be applied also to Napoleonics, to the American Civil War. Oh my, just wonder, or to the colonizations, the different approaches on colonization games. This is a very important, very interesting aspect, and I think it is very significant in my own study, because as my dear friend Andrea Angiolino, and you will find many quotations about Angiolino's great works that I've written mostly in Italian, so this is also a great opportunity to know them for non-Italian speakers. He always says that the game tells us so much about the society that created that game, so they can become what I like to call tertiary historical sources. This is just like if you examine artistic artworks from a certain era of a society, you learn so much about that society. Yes, it is an Admiral Tron quotation here. Okay, big Star Wars fan. But that is the idea, right? And since historical simulation are both historical essays and mathematical wonderful machines, but also works of art, thanks also to Greg Kostikian's amazing essays about this aspect. And also Redmond's Simonson about this aspect. Yeah, they will be wonderful instruments to get into the mindset of certain moments of our own societies. and also after that, also I the essay studies the uses behavioral sciences techniques to understand the psychological dynamics of what happens around a gaming table into the mind of the players, the relationship with the other players. This was a part of Ariadne's game, my second major book, and that I re-elaborated in English for this book, for this particular essay. Also, chapter 5, not all that glitters. This is a characteristic of my work, because I want my works, my essays, my studies about historical simulation to be highly critical. That is not just, oh, this is a wonderful thing, historical simulation is perfect, it has so amazing, such amazing potential, it will never fail. No, it will always fail. This is a constant element of my work. Historical simulation will never tell you how events happened, will never give you a complete knowledge of those events, will never be a perfect and accurate reconstruction of what happened. It does not work that way. In the same way that photography is not reality. Once again, Redmond Simonson and the logo, and the SPA logo, that is a camera, a picture, a camera shutter of a photographic lens. It is an interpretation, but in some ways it's even more important, because it gives you a certain vision, a certain perspective on that, on those events, with all its distortions, its mistakes that are examined and listed in chapter 5. But also these errors, these mistakes, this distortion, these biases help you understand, get you, encourage you to get into the path, to obtain your own personal vision, which will be flawed, which will be biased. Even my own is. Everybody perception is of reality is biased, but by confronting all those different biases, all those different perspectives, what is good, what is not good, and discussing, I agree with this, but not with that, and so on and so on, we carry the discussion, the inquiry forward. We will never have a perfect image of the past. Why? Because not even those who were in the past had the perfect knowledge of what was happening around them. Napoleon had no perfect knowledge of Waterloo. Scipio had no perfect knowledge of the Punic Wars. General Lee had no perfect knowledge about Gettysburg, and so on and so on. Of course, this is human nature. But it is a good thing, because this keeps us moving, keeps us studying and inquiring and going forward. Also historical simulation, also the evolution of historical simulation games. This does not mean that past simulation games are flawed, are incorrect, are invalid, etc. They're just different. They have just different perspectives, and they're as good as the most modern ones. You just have to compare those perspectives. That's it. This is the reason. So why I include always include a critical chapter in my works. After that, chapter 6, the conclusions. And the wrap up of all this stuff, theoretical and actual and material and psychological and blah, blah, blah. Okay, so much stuff, I understand. But as a conclusion, I just get back to myself. And now I get to myself, to my own, and what I really would like people to understand, my own relationship with these games. You know, I am not, thanks to my father, who he's first an historian and a wargamer after, and he taught me about wargames, and I learned to read the English and later speak English thanks to wargames, thanks to what my father gave me to read, and thanks to all my great international friends all over the globe in wargaming. I have begun my journey as a guy who was passionate about history first, and after that on Wargames. I was passionate about history, and I found this great instrument, that is Wargames historical simulation. It was amazing at telling me, giving me alternative perspectives and putting me into history itself. So I'm not a guy who plays Wargames and then gets to history. My focus is on history first, but Wargames are so powerful that they quickly became a part of my understanding of history. This is what I really want to stress out with this book, that through the study of historical simulation, the study and practice of historical simulation games, you gain a deeper understanding of history, of your own relationship with history, and of history itself. So they're wonderful instruments. They will never tell you exactly what happened, but they will be incredibly useful, your historical studies. Why? Because they will give a free critical approach, individual approach, scientific approach. It will be counterfactual. It will not be history, never be history, but it will be a great way to learn how to view, how to study history. And in this, they are absolutely amazing. This is the true power. And I hope that this real potential, real nature of historical simulation, that is akin to what Johann Huizinga said about games, that they were the basis of of human culture. Historical simulation games are the basis of how we view history. Even an historian is playing with history when he or she is writing an historical essay. But some people put this playing, this gaming attitude into actual games. They're historical simulation games. And here they are. So this book is about all this stuff. And I hope that I have managed to convey this through my thesis and theories and concepts and so on. But most of all, through my exploration together with you. And I really would like to know your opinions about this work, this video or another that we will make, because I really want to have the greater amount also of different, also dissenting opinions about this wonderful topic that is historical simulation. This is a work that has been written really out of passion for this great hobby, discipline. I don't know how to describe it, but this great thing that is, this great application of human intellect that is historical simulation games. Simulation gaming, that are historical simulation games. Okay, guys, I think you understand what I'm saying. Okay, you will find it written in eye-opening better English than what I'm speaking now, but you will find it. I will put the link in the description. We will speak once again about this game, other times about this book. Also, don't forget the special discount code, DYS20. And also, I'm really hoping that this work will interest you, will gather your interest, and will be able to really put out the three great elements of what I think is the experience of historical simulation, that is involvement, psychological involvement, better knowledge of the events, and then better awareness of what those events mean to you in the past, mean to you in the present, help you understanding the present, because this is another aspect, really fundamental aspect of the book, and really another thing, not predicting, but being ready for the future. And all of this is the true nature, the true potential of historical simulation gaming. And I hope to have been able to convey that in this book. I'm waiting for your opinions. and waiting for your feedback for reaction to this book. And thank you for having been with me. And once again, if you want, this is my work. Thank you for being with me, and let's have a wonderful 2024-2025 season of vlog, of war games, of historical gaming in general. And that's it. Okay. Oh, and as always, even in this book, the real morale of this book is don't be scared. It's just war games. Ciao.